So you've had that text or message from your GP or the hospital inviting you to your latest routine test. You haven't even made the appointment, and your mind has gone into this spiral of doom. Welcome to perimenopause and menopause. This is health anxiety at its absolute finest. If you're new to me here, I'm Niamh. I'm a women's confidence coach. I also work with Reiki, meditation and journaling, and I help women to rein in their thoughts and to regain their confidence. And today I'm going to talk about worry and anxiety around health in perimenopause and menopause, why it happens and what we can do about it. Now, I have real lived experience of this, and if you are a regular listener, you will know that my last 6 episodes have been on worry, and I thought I was done. And then I realized that I'm not alone, or I wasn't alone, in my worry about health. And that this is something that in particular strikes women when we get to menopause or perimenopause. Suddenly standard routine tests, those ones that we've been doing since our 20s, or you've just been invited, you just go, you get if you had children, you'll have had your blood tested and blood pressure done regularly, and it's rarely been an issue. And then all of a sudden, perimenopause or menopause hits, and boom, it's like impending death. You're invited to have your blood pressure checked, your blood tests for blood sugars and whatnot, anything else, mammograms. And I don't know what hits us. It's like suddenly your brain is making up multiple stories. I went through this with blood pressure. I went for routine tests, and the nurse put a blood pressure machine on my wrist. Now, I don't think that machine was working correctly, because it recorded in that session, 10 minutes I was there, whatever, she took my blood pressure 3 or 4 times, and each time it was sky high. I have never ever had high blood pressure in my entire life. In fact, it was always on the low side. Even at the end of pregnancy with my last child, and I was massive, my blood pressure was never elevated to a point where they had to worry about it. But this particular time with this nurse, my blood pressure was through the roof. And of course, the more she wanted to check it, the more stressed I was getting. And that created such anxiety for me that I still cannot have my blood pressure taken in a clinical setting. I have a blood pressure machine at home, and I take my blood pressure at home and send the readings in. Now, I do believe there was something wrong with that machine, because actually a while ago I went to A&E for an issue, and I had my blood pressure checked there, and it was a little bit high, as one would expect when you're in A&E, but it was nowhere near what that machine the nurse used was showing. So I do think there was an issue with her machine and not my blood pressure. But ever since then, just the very thoughts of having my blood pressure taken makes me shake down to my very boots. And while I've worked on this, I've journaled on it, and I've, tried to think my way through it, I can't come up for a reason for this other than health anxiety. That anxiety that kicks in, whether it's due to hormonal changes, because our hormones at this age of our life are all over the place, and it's hard to regulate your mood when your hormones are all out of balance. Whether it's the fact that, mortality suddenly seems closer, let's not go there. You know what I mean? That health anxiety builds up. Also add to the fact that I've had some friends diagnosed with some quite serious conditions, and I've lost a few friends over the years as well. And if you're in any way a worrier, this all adds up. And because a lot of this goes on in the background as well, we don't realize what's happening. I didn't realize for years that I didn't have to think every thought, or that I didn't have to allow every thought to be built up into great big stories. And I know that what happened for me is that when I am in my patterns of overthinking, of anxiety, that's what's happening. A thought comes in, and suddenly my brain is making up stories. It's doom scrolling. It's finding evidence for why I should be afraid of what might this mean if this result comes back as a positive or a negative, or it's too high or it's too low, what that might mean. And dear old Dr. Google doesn't help either, because these days, we have this habit, at least I did, I've kind of given that up now, of going into Dr. Google and asking, I have such and such a reading on my blood test or on my blood pressure, whatever, what does this mean? And Dr. Google, and our friend ChatGPT as well, I'm afraid, is a little bit of a doomsayer. They always come up with the worst case scenarios. And so what I've found is actually just trying to take a step back, trying to say to myself, this is a test. All I need to do is book the appointment and get the test done. Because actually, if I don't book that appointment and don't get that test done, that might have more implications for my health than actually getting the test done. So I book the appointment. And then I tell myself this is a test. And I don't need to believe all the stories that my brain is coming up with around this test. Even when I get the results back, they're still just what ifs and in imaginary scenarios that my brain is coming up with. Because one test in isolation generally doesn't mean anything. Now, I know I am lucky enough that I haven't had, so far, any really serious diagnoses to contend with. I've had the odd test that's come back, not as I would like it, or my GP would like it. But what I've done is I've gone away with that test and thought, okay, so I need to make some improvements here. I need to change something. What is going to work best for me? Because my brain would have me straight away going, oh, you're going to die. No, probably not true. Yes, at some point. But right now, because of this test result, no. So what I find works for me is that telling myself before the test that it's one test result, one result in isolation. I tell myself this is just a test, and I treat myself with kindness and compassion when I'm going for that test. If I'm feeling anxious about it, I will also say that to the medical practitioner. I'm feeling really anxious about this test today. And somehow just letting that out into the open, just telling somebody else, kind of halves the anxiety. It also means that they're a little bit more gentle with you. They don't rush you out of the room quite so quickly. Or at least that's my findings anyway. So I find being open and honest about it, and I think the more we as women can talk about this amongst ourselves and create that understanding, because this is a scary time of life. Our bodies are doing all sorts of things. Our brains doing all sorts of things. And sometimes just having that confirmation that you're not the only one, you're not alone in this, can help to actually really reduce that anxiety. So telling yourself before a test that it is just a test. Make sure you ground yourself before the test. So if that means standing outside with a cup of tea for a few minutes before you go into the test, talking to a medical practitioner about the test before you have it, during it and afterwards. I always request a phone call with the results now, rather than getting a text message or looking it up on an app, because actually that works much better for me. I prefer to talk to somebody who can tell me what these results mean and what I need to do about these results, rather than just getting a result in and then going off to Dr. Google, which was not helpful in the least. If I get a result that is not what I would like, I will then talk to my health practitioner and ask, what do I do now? Because I live what most people would think of, and what my GP and my practice nurse believe is a very healthy lifestyle. I don't eat processed or junk food. I'm mostly vegetarian, so I have a plant-based diet. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I exercise. So I do everything that I'm supposed to do. It doesn't always work. But what I have to do is try not to let the anxiety rule. I have to trust that my body knows what it's doing. It's just like when we go out to do our businesses, to do our jobs, to deal with our families. We have this inner knowing, this trust that we know what to do in those circumstances. Our body knows what to do as well. So we need to lean into trusting our body, which is not always easy. But if we can calm the mind, if we can stop those anxious thoughts and the worries, then we don't stop putting ourselves into fight or flight or freeze or fawn mode. And I've talked about this in a previous episode. When we can stop throwing our body into fight, flight, freeze or fawn, we give it a better chance of doing what it knows how to do. Which is why it's so important to get control of the mind and the anxiety and the worries in your brain. Why it's so important to not let your brain go do the doom scrolling. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not. Do I still have some health anxiety? Yes, of course I do on occasion. That's natural, that's normal, that's human. What I'm working really, really hard on, and what I work on with my clients, is to stop the thinking, to stop the thoughts, to recognize this is one test, one step at a time. It's like everything else in life that we learn and that we do, we take it one step at a time. So this anxiety that you might feel around your health is normal during this period of your life. However, what we don't want to do is normalize it. We don't want it to become part of our everyday life. We need to accept that sometimes we're going to feel anxious about our health. that what our bodies are going through is throwing up thoughts and physical sensations. And what we need to do is take care of ourselves, treat ourselves with kindness and compassion. We need to stop occasionally and just ask ourselves what's going on here. And I find a really useful thing is to just stop whatever I'm doing, wherever I am, when the anxiety arises, to close my eyes, put one hand on my abdomen, one on my chest, close my eyes. Did I say close my eyes already? I think I did. Close my eyes, take a few deep breaths, and then ask myself what's really going on here. What is the fear? What are the thoughts around that fear? What stories am I telling myself that I don't need to be telling myself about this? What can I let go of here? And sometimes, can I talk to somebody before I make this appointment? Is there somebody at my practice that I know is sympathetic or empathetic? Now, my GP is fantastic, bless him. He's put up with a lot from me over the years. And then we have one particular practice nurse who is amazing as well. So I will always try to see either one of them when something needs seeing to, or when I have a result that, I wasn't expecting or whatever. One, because they're used to dealing with me, so they know where my mind goes. And two, because they have the medical knowledge to explain to me what's happening, what's going on, what I can do to change it. I don't know if this episode's been a bit rambly. If there's been anything helpful in it for you, please do let me know. Let's have a conversation, ladies. Please don't be alone in this, because you're not alone, because it affects the majority of us in one way or another. So please get in the comments, subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends, message me privately. I'm here for you. I can't fix this for you, but I can give you tools to help you through it. And sometimes just sharing that problem, speaking to somebody else who's been there, who knows, can help. Thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next one.